Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of My Favorite Builds. Today we're going to be going over another one of my favorite builds, which is the Godzilla. That's right, a level 97 paladin that I built back in, that was like Season 3 or something like that. This character is a little old, and he does not incorporate Sunder Charms, although maybe he could. You could utilize a Lightning Sunder Charm on this particular character. But all in all, I don't think it would really have a huge effect on his damage output, but it would help a little bit. I mean, I could maybe go find one somewhere. I don't really know if I got a lightning sunder just sitting around anywhere, but I could maybe steef one, and we could see, perhaps, well, you know, if maybe this character is capable of a little bit more with the lightning sunder. I have a feeling, though, it's going to bring his lightning resistance pretty far down, because I think he's only just capped his lightning res. So he would need a pretty considerable amount of lightning res to overcome the negative. But I know a character I can steal one from real quick, and then we can just test it out, shall we? But basically, this video is about the Godzealer. The Godzealer is a character that I devised under the auspices of having a character that is, how would I put this, designed around the idea of what if you did more than just one element of damage, and how could you potentially utilize that, you know, well, obviously to your advantage, right? So when it comes to the Paladin has the ability to zeal very fast, obviously. Thus the Godzealer part of it. The Zealer is essentially him zealing. The faster he zeals, the more damage he does, right? On-hit damage is very important, as well as pulse damage. But we also have other forms of on-hit damage when it comes to this particular character as well. And let's see how this goes. So down to 32% lightning res. I mean, it's you know, that's definitely down from what it was before. Let's pull out one of the plain combat skillers. That's not really that big of a deal. All right, so with the Godzeela, his equipment is basically this. A Crescent Moon Phase Blade, which is relatively cheap. Negative 35% enemy lightning resistance is massive here and gives us pretty much everything we need. It's also very fast. And the Phase Blade is a negative 30 base, and it comes with 20% increased attack speed, which means we attack really fast. We also get level 17 Chain Lightning on proc, and then also the level 13 Static Field on proc, which is also very nice. And we even get Open Wounds as well, so that we can make sure the monsters aren't regenerating. On top of this, we're using the Dream Helmet, which is going to give us the level 15 Holy Shock Aura, and then we're using the Dream Shield, which gives us another level 15 Holy Shock Aura, which is a very nice combination of the two. Also, I'm using a Paladin Amulet with all resistances on it. It does have a little bit of faster cast. I have my Principal Armor on, and this is specifically so that I can utilize that 100% chance to cast level 5 Holy Bolt on Striking, and we'll talk about that later. Gore Riders for the Crushing Blow, Open Wounds, Deadly Strike, as well as Raven Frost for the attack rating and dex, and they cannot be frozen. String of Ears for the damage reduction, obviously. It's a very good option for a melee character. We also have a Dual Leech All Res Ring in our other hand, which is very nice to help shore up a lot of the missing resistances. Laying of Hands Bramble Bitch, which also comes into the Holy Bolt on Striking, but on top of that also has 350% damage to demons, which is certainly not a slouch in any way, shape, or form. For skillers, we are utilizing combat skillers mainly, and we also have a 12% faster hit recovery, 10 maximum damage, 73 AR one, which is just amazing. Plus 3 Pally, 1719, a 1919 8 Annie, and then we have some faster hit recovery to shore up our hit recovery problems, as well as some more max damage AR charms, little all reses, you know, whatever basically I needed to fill the gaps. Like, for instance, I could probably throw in... I probably don't need that one right there. And then what I could do is I could look through here, see if I have a lightning resistance one to shore up my lightning resistances for using the Sunder. Doesn't really matter which one, but like I got a 7% lightning res there, which would help shore up some of the missing lightning resistance. So I could work on it that way and get myself a little bit more lightning resistance through charms and things like that to counter the Sunder. With this particular build, I am utilizing a mercenary that is specifically set up for my character, and I chose, out of all the characters, I chose a fire mercenary, a fire Act 3 mercenary. And the reason why I ended up choosing a fire Act 3 mercenary was because, well, he comes with me basically everywhere, and I found it to be very powerful because I'm running conviction, that he ends up, joining me on my little adventures. And for some reason, he seems to be missing his weapon, which I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, was a plague sword, which I think I know anyway who stole that. Sorry, I have to piece together these characters because, online, a lot of the times you end up swapping and swapping items between all your various characters, right? So you're constantly, trying your best to make everything work. And sometimes that means stealing pieces of equipment from other characters and you know what? I actually don't think I know which one. Maybe Highlander has it. Let's check Highlander. But basically, the entire purpose of this is to have a mercenary who's capable of dishing out massive amounts of damage in elemental form to take advantage of the massive conviction that I have. And I don't have the...
I'll put that to good use.
It doesn't look like I have the spirit sword, or the plague sword, but I do have a spirit, so let's go ahead and grab the spirit, and we'll bring this over there, and I'll throw that on him, just so that he's not gimped. I don't want him to look bad, especially considering that he's a non-standard mercenary, something that you wouldn't normally see on a paladin. The reason why I chose him is just because I really realized that I didn't need much else. I wasn't a physical damage character, so I didn't really need, for instance, the physical damage on things. I has an elemental damage character instead, not a physical damage character, and I threw it in the wrong stash, didn't I? Man, I am having the worst time just like compiling items between characters, making me look unprofessional as all get out. All right, one more time into the breach, my friends. Oh, he's, never mind, he's ladder. What am I doing? That is definitely not the correct character then. Let me check just really quickly, because it might be on Frosty Cheeks, which I'm also going to be doing a video on at some point. Frosty Cheeks is an interesting character that revolves around Holy Freeze, and I may have stolen his item. Missed. Plague, there it is. Plague Phase Blade. Okay. I did steal it for him. Okay, that makes sense. Good. Take this head striker for a second. Hey, I found it. Look at that. Like some sort of genius. Now, the reason why I like having Plague on him is because, well, it's freaking ridiculous. Having Plague on the Mercenary allows me to basically have infinite cleansing aura. And it also gives him the plus the skills he needs. Gives me a little bit of lower resistance too, which is absolutely kind of insane for this particular build, and I kind of didn't want to show it to you without it, because having free lower resistance is certainly not terrible. And there we go. So now he has his Plague Phase Blade, which gives the 20% chance to cast level 12 lower resistance. He has +2 to all skills, 20% increased attack speed, which doesn't help him at all. But he does get the which is it? The cleansing aura, which is really the big thing, right? So now he has cleansing aura, and he's also utilizing some other pieces of equipment so that he can actually utilize the Plague Phase Blade. So I actually had to create a jeweler's plate of the whale with 2 code runes in it so that he had enough dexterity to actually use the Phase Plague Blade. In the future, though, if you were to actually build this character, you wouldn't put your Plague in a Phase Blade. You would put it in something lower, something easier to equip. This is actually one that I just pulled off of another character, so I was trying to be cheap, essentially. You also utilize an ethereal Spirit Monarch. It has to be ethereal because he doesn't have enough strength to wear the non-ethereal version. As you can see, he only has 152 strength at level 97, so he will never have enough strength to wear a non-ethereal Spirit Phase Blade, not without some sort of enhancement. He's also using Flickering Flame, of course, because he is a fire sorcerer, and that is important for his build. And all in all, he's very interesting as well. Let's talk about skills real quick. and how I built this particular character. So I did put 1 point into prayer, and the reason why I put 1 point into prayer is because it is a synergy for the Plague Phase Blade, and a lot of the times I will actually swap with him. This is actually something that I would do on a regular basis, is take the Crescent Moon off, put it on him, and put the Plague on myself. And the reason why I would do this is so that I could have the Cleansing Aura. And there were some situations where he would die, or I knew he was going to die, and so I would swap it out like that so I could get the Cleansing Aura. And it's a really easy swap out because obviously they both have the same stats. But with 1 point in prayer, I get the regeneration while I'm using the Cleansing Aura, so it's kind of a nice little thing that you can do. I also maxed out Resist Lightning and Salvation. This is the synergy for Holy Shock. And even though I'm not building Holy Shock, I do have the Dream Helmets on because they add up together, and I have level 30 Holy Shock between the two. This allows me to have a massive amount of Holy Shock damage, both in physical, actually on my physical hits, and also pulse damage, which is very nice. On top of this, I do end up maxing out Conviction, and when I say maxing out Conviction, it's important to note that Conviction maxes out at level 25. So I think I'm 1 point shy at this particular moment, so let me just go ahead and drop 1 point in there. So at level 25, you get maximum benefit for Conviction, and there's no reason to go any further than level 25. So as you can see, I only have, I think it's 17 hard points in this ability, with the plus to skills adding into that. And then on top of that, for combat skills, I do have a pretty decent amount in Fist of the Heavens. I have 20 points. And the reason why I have 20 points in the Fist of Heavens is because it is a synergy for Holy Bolt. I am not, however, building Holy Bolt because this is not a Fist of the Heavens Paladin. This is a Godzeela, and we'll talk about that later. I also have 14 points into Holy Shield, and that's about the gist of it right there. Really not a whole lot going on there as far as this character goes. I think the only other thing that I missed is Zeal, which I only put 1 base point into. And the reason why I only put 1 base point into it is because I really just don't need to max it out. Not for this particular build. I do have 1 point in Fanaticism for use when I'm smiting. But I didn't really find this character to be the most effective at smiting. So it may not necessarily be the right call. So let's talk about really quickly my Holy Bolt damage and how this works, and how much damage it actually does do. It does do. So the first thing you have to know is that Holy Bolt has a synergy with Fist of the Heavens. It is a 1,000% synergy with Fist of the Heavens. So if you put 20 points into Fist of the Heavens, you get 1,000% damage for the Holy Bolt, right? So at level 5, which is the level that the principal armor shoots, it's not very much, but it does enhance the damage quite considerably. And let me pull up the Holy Bolt numbers real quick, and we're going to multiply this out so you know exactly what we're looking at. So we are looking at level 5 Holy Bolt damage, which is an average of 40 to 48, right? So what you do is you add 40 to 48, you get an average damage of 88, and then you divide by 2, and you get an average damage of 44. Then you plus 1,000%, which gets you a total Holy Bolt damage of 484 per bolt. All right, 484 per bolt, which is not bad. Remember that number because we're going to go to the next one. So the next one is the Laying of Hands, which is a level 3 Holy Bolt, and level 3 Holy Bolt is 24 to 32. And that gives us 56 divided by 2, which is an average damage of 28, plus 1,000%, which gets us a total of 308. Now, we have two different things here. We've got a 100% chance, which means every single time, and then we have a 10% chance. So, bare minimum, we're looking at a 100% chance of level 5, and maximum, we're looking at a total of basically 2 Holy Bolts per strike, right? So we can get 2, we can get 1, it might be one or the other, which means we have a damage range of 484 to 792. That's our damage range. 484 to 792 per strike, all right? But the problem with this is we are looking at 4-frame Zeal, All right. So if we go to an IAS calculator and you look at how many attacks there are in Zeal when you have 4-frame Zeal, which this character does in fact have 4-frame Zeal. So let's just very quickly, we're just going to throw a 4-frame Zeal on here so you know exactly how many attacks that is. So we're just going to give him as much IAS as possible. And when you go down here at the bottom, it says 3.12 attacks per second. Further IAS useless, right? So we are at our maximum IAS for this particular ability, which is 3.12. So we multiply this by 3.12, which gets us our per Zeal, or our per second damage, basically. Our per second damage is 2,471 at the maximum, and 484 times 3.17, right? 3.17. Yeah, 3.12. Sorry, 3.12 gets us 1,510. So we are looking at anywhere between 1,510 damage per second to 2,471 damage per second, depending on how they proc. We will always get the bare minimum with Principle, as long as we hit the target, and we will get even more than that with Laying of Hands. And they actually do stack. I have tested this, and they actually fire off in sequence, which is very nice. And because Holy Bolt doesn't actually have an issue with piercing and doing anything like that, you actually end up with a pretty hefty amount of additional Zeal damage on top of everything else. Then, on top of this, we also have the Mercenary itself. So, our Mercenary is also providing us with an enchant bonus of 340 fire damage and a pretty huge attack rating bonus, too. The attack rating is very nice, I'm perfectly honest. And when you utilize the attack rating bonus, the fire damage, the Holy Bolt damage, the lightning damage that comes from the dreams, and so forth and so on, the amount of damage this guy puts out is pretty insane. Let's go to the Chaos Sanctuary. And if you'd like to see this character on P8, I actually have tested this character on P8. When I was running to get to level 99 during Season 3, which obviously I never made it since I'm level 97, I was able to basically plow through Player's 8 with relative ease. Something that is kind of insane with this particular character. As you can see, the pulse damage on the dreams is massive, and most of the monsters can't even withstand the pulse damage. The on-hit Zeal damage is surprisingly good, and the attack rating is actually not half bad when you consider the fact that I get my enchant up to 7,293, and I'm not really too entirely worried about hitting things because I do have ITD on the weapon. Unfortunately, this does mean that things get a little bit nasty when it comes to bosses. And one thing I would like to do is up the attack rating on this build a little bit. I suppose there are a couple ways that you could potentially do this. And one of them would be maxing out Zeal. You could sacrifice some points here or there. Maybe get a couple more plus to skills, and you could max out Zeal, which would give you a little bit more attack rating. Although I think the raw meat and potatoes of this is that it's not about percentage, because I have a massive amount of percentage right now. Between the enchant that my boy is giving me, I have 407% attack rating here. I also have 130% attack rating from Zeal itself, and then on top of that, I'm also getting an extra 5% passive from Blessed Aim. So it's like I'm already getting over like 600 or 700% attack rating increase. I really need more raw attack rating, which could be fixed by adding in more charms, maybe a really nice attack rating ring, which I only have a 55 attack rating ring here, although that ring is freaking amazing. And in general, just getting the attack rating up a little bit higher wouldn't exactly be terrible. Versus all the trash mobs, though, because ITD on Crescent Moon is so good, you're never going to have any issues with trash mobs as far as attacking them and hitting them. The only monsters that you're going to ever really have trouble with hitting is like the bosses and things like that, because your attack rating might be a little bit too low. And I definitely never really kind of fixed the attack rating issue with this particular character. When it comes to Zealing, though, you usually attack so much and so quickly that even though you do miss a couple hits, it doesn't really even seem all that silly, because you just keep on attacking anyway. When it comes to the trash mobs, obviously you never miss, so it doesn't even really matter. With Crescent Moon as your main attack, you dish out massive amounts of lightning damage. And it's really just complementary to the dreams. It makes the dreams so much better in general. And as you can see, pretty much just rolling through this. Now, as far as Magic Find goes with this particular character, you can actually build Magic Find with the Godzilla. But what I found is that taking off the principal armor really kind of ruins the whole Holy Bolt aspect. And when you ruin the Holy Bolt aspect, you really just kind of ruin the Godzilla entirely. And it ceases to be a Godzilla, and at that point, it pretty much is just a regular Dream Paladin, which isn't quite the same thing. So building Magic Find on this character isn't as easy as some of the others. With the dreams, though, you do get a decent amount of Magic Find with each dream, so you will be running a small amount of Magic Find no matter what. As you can see here, I have 39% Magic Find with my regular equipment. If you added a little bit of Magic Find in, like in terms of the amulet, maybe threw on a gold wrap on the belt, a Geeds, which I don't actually even have a Geeds in here, you could probably pretty easily hit 100% to 200% Magic Find, depending on which pieces you choose, without too much of a sacrifice. As you can see here, I can absolutely still annihilate regular P1 Hell Diablo with relative ease. Now, some of the side effects of this particular build are that, well, you don't really have good boss killing capability. As a Dream Paladin, none of the lightning damage transfers to Smite, which is rather unfortunate. So if you do a Smiter build, you generally want to go with something like a Haas. And I actually had a Grief and a Herald of Zakarum on my other hand, specifically for situations where I wanted to Smite. Because if I was ever in a position where I needed to dish out large amounts of smite damage, I knew that the dreams weren't really going to cut it. So on the other hand, I do have a Grief, a Herald Zakarum, and I use Fanaticism so that I can smite those targets whenever I get a chance. It's not exactly the best damage output in the world, but it does definitely allow you to dish out a decent amount of smite damage, apply some of your crushing blow and open wounds, and of course, get some targets dead. A lot of the times I would carry a G-Face around to replace the other dream with, so whenever I would go a smiting, essentially, or go a Viking, so to speak, I would have the G-Face just standing by, which seems to be missing, but, thus is the case with all of my characters as I strip them for equipment for the next character, which just seems to be the way of the frickin' Diablo, after all. I also had a pair of Drax on standby whenever I wanted to do smiting. So usually what I would do is I would have a G-Face and Drax sitting in here with the Grief and the Herald of Zakarum on swap. So whenever I wanted to utilize the smiter portion of this particular character, I would change the Drax with the laying of hands, and I would change the Dream Helmet with the G-Face. And that's pretty much all you have to do is hit the W button, change out 2 pieces of equipment, and you're set up for smiting. Which is actually pretty friggin' awesome. Overall, though, this character is kind of nuts in the amount of damage that he can put out. And even the Mercenary, like I said, does pretty good damage. Let's go take him somewhere real quick and just have him murderize some stuff. I'll just kind of stand there, and you can just watch the Mercenary work. Of course, I have my dreams on. Let me take my dreams off so that I'm not murdering everything before he gets a chance to. As you can see here, he's able to dish out some pretty significant damage on his own. Between the Conviction Aura that I'm applying for him and the massive amount of plus the skills that I made sure he had, he dishes out some pretty serious explosion damage. Of course, the fireballs explode and they dish out damage in a radius, so he's able to put out some pretty serious numbers thanks to my Conviction Aura. On top of my Conviction Aura, he also has access to the flickering flame negative resistance as well. So he's looking at 15% negative enemy resistance, and my freaking negative 150% resistance for a total of negative 65% resistance, which is massive. And his fireball is about 3k, which means that the monsters are always at less than 100% for him, unless they're immune. And he's capable of dishing out some pretty serious damage numbers. I think it's like generally about double that, so it's about like 6k per fireball, which isn't bad. He could be set up a little bit better, by the way. Obviously, if I put the Plague Blade in a Crystal Sword instead of a Phase Blade, he wouldn't need this, and he could be utilizing a very nice plate here, like maybe Kay Hagen's Wisdom, which would be a very good choice for him. Kay Hagen's gives a pretty nice amount of faster cast, with faster hit recovery as well, and then on top of that, it would also give him the ability to use an additional fire facet, which would definitely help him out tremendously as well. All in all, though, I think one of the main reasons why I ended up going with the Act 3 Mercenary is just simply because, number one, it takes advantage of my Conviction Aura, and number two, that massive attack rating was definitely something that I realized I needed to make sure that I was able to hit the attack rating that I wanted. And obviously my attack rating could still be a little bit higher, but with the 400 and some odd % that frickin' the Mercenary's given me, and if I replace the armor, I could get 2 more plus the skills here, right? So I could end up, or 2 or 1 more, and I could end up with an even higher percentage of attack rating bonus. So that's also another thing. All in all, I was very impressed with the Godzeela, and the Godzeela was an interesting creation. If I were to rebuild the Godzeela today, I'm not exactly sure if I would build it the exact same way. And I've come up with other designs since then. The North Star Smiter was a natural progression of this build into a slightly different character that allowed me to utilize Smite as well as the AoE damage effects. But they're two completely different characters at the end of the day. Really, it's kind of hard to compare them to each other because one is a Zealer that does use attack rating and focuses on elemental damage like lightning along with holy damage. The other is a character that uses no attack rating, smites, and has holy damage as well, but is mainly physical. And it's really kind of difficult to compare them, especially considering that this one can life leech, the other one can't, that one needs life tap, and this one doesn't, and so forth and so on. Dreams don't actually add their lightning damage to smite, and this one uses conviction, the other one uses fanaticism. They're two completely different characters, but they are both very fun characters, in my opinion. The Godzeela was one of my first creations using the new Holy Bolt system with the principal armor, and it was really my first creation of just this character using that setup in general. And it's pretty ridiculous just how good it is to be able to spam Holy Bolts, spam lightning damage, and spam fire damage all at the same time. This character reliably handled P8 content with ease, and by replacing the principal armor with an Enigma, I was able to teleport my character around and still dish out massive amounts of damage. It was a little bit less. I definitely didn't like taking off the principal armor, but I was going for 99 back when the time before Terror Zones existed, and I realized that pretty much the only way I was going to be able to do that is if I could teleport. Otherwise, it was going to take me forever. I did get to 97, as you can tell, but I did not make it to 99 on this character. I think with the addition of Terror Zones, though, I think he could do it no problem. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about the Godzeela. And as always, keep watching.